So it's a new month, and that means it's time for a wrap up. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today is my December wrap up. So everything I read in December 2022. It's now 2023. Happy New Year, and hopefully this year is everything you need it to be. That's what I'm hoping for myself for 2023. I want this year to be everything I need it to be. Today's pretty basic video. I'm just going to talk about the books I read in December, and I will give you the ratings. There will be no spoilers, so you don't have to worry about that. Make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and all we do on this channel is talk about books. So if you like listening to people who talk about books, here I am every week doing just that. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. The first book I read in December was Santa's Broken Toy by Oona Grace. Y'all heard me talk about this book a little bit. I talked about it in the December maybes, and then I talked about it a couple times over the month of December because I was doing a giveaway for it on my TikTok channel. The giveaway's closed and everything, and it ended up going really well. So you guys have heard me mention this book, and let's talk about it. So we have a main character, Mary, who is a widow, and she decides that she doesn't want to spend the holidays with her family this year because it's always just kind of an emotional roller coaster dealing with people who don't understand how to talk to people without bringing up their grief. Do you know what I mean? Like, Mary's husband died a couple years ago, and people still like kind of tiptoe around her and don't know how to talk to her without bringing up her dead husband. So she decides she's going to go to a cabin in the woods for the holidays and just do you, basically. Before she even really gets settled in there, there's a little bit of like a snowstorm kind of thing, and a stranger, a very strapping stranger, shows up on her doorstep needing her help. And what ensues is just a smut-tacular book, okay? This book is very spicy. I won't lie about it. It's only 150 pages, and there is 11 full steamy scenes in this book. 11. That's a lot, okay? This is like the age gap trope, but it's also a later in life novel, so they're not like in their 20s or anything like that. I think Mary is 40, and our second character is, I think, 55. So there is a bit of an age gap there. It's kind of got like this biker romance edge to it. Look at the cover, make your own estimations from that. This book was so much fun, and then the underlying message and plot of this book was just so tender and so beautiful. I absolutely loved it. You know, it's funny because in last week's episode, I was like, I haven't read any good smutty books lately. I don't know why I said that, because this one, I read it. And maybe it's because I read it like so early in December that I legitimately forgot that I read it. Do you know what I mean? December was a long month in my house, like a lot going on in December. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. If you like age gap, if you like biker romance, if you like smut, just pick it up. 150 pages. It reads like a breeze. It's super easy, super fun, super sexy. The next book I read in December was Winter Solstice by Elin Hilderbrand. So I talked about this in the December Maybe series. This is part of the Winter Street series. I have read the Winter Street series since like 2019. It's been like my December tradition to read a novel from the Winter Street series. It's a lot like that movie, The Family Stone, where they have like a big family and there's a lot of like family dynamics and things like that happening. It's just really fun. Like, Kelly, the main male character, owns an inn on Nantucket Island where he raised his kids, and his ex-wife is like this high-powered career woman, and his current wife runs the inn with him. There's just a lot. This series is a lot of fun, and it's something that I've cherished through over the years. This book, however, disappointed me. First of all, when I read book 3, I really felt like the series was complete. There was no hanging on edge or anything. I didn't actually think there was gonna be a fourth book or that there was one. It just didn't feel that way. And then when I started looking, I realized there was a fourth book. After I read it and I felt like a little off about it, I dug into the reviews. And basically people were saying that in like interviews with Elin Hilderbrand and like in some of her acknowledgement sections or things like that, she had said that the Winter Street series was originally a trilogy and that it was suggested to her from her editor or from somebody that she make a fourth one. And like the way that they were talking about it was like it was some sort of like marketing thing, and there was a huge influx of new characters in this book, and a lot of people in the review section were saying a lot of these characters that were in this book are cameoed from some of her other novels. So it really did, after I like sat back and looked at it, it really did feel like some sort of like a marketing thing, and that they wanted her to put out this fourth book as a way to like highlight some of her other books and like introduce characters from her other works. And when I looked back at it from that perspective, that's exactly how it felt. It felt like it was last minute idea that wasn't fully thought through and didn't have much to do with the original family that this is supposed to be about, the Quinn family. And so I ended up giving it 3 stars because I couldn't, it didn't feel like the other 3 books, and I just was increasingly disappointed after I read more and more about why this book was even made. And then all of these books, the Winter Street series, like, this family has money. You can tell that from reading the pages and things like that, just because of who these people are. Like, you know they have money. In this book, it was really just shoved in our faces how much money this family had and how much privilege this family had. And I don't know if like maybe I've just outgrown this storyline, but it just rubbed me the wrong way this time. Like I couldn't help but think like how very privileged all these people were, and that it was just seemed downright snobby. I don't know. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't love it like I love the other ones. And that was really disappointing to me because I really did like the other 3 books. And yeah, there it is. 3 stars, Winter Solstice. If you're going to read the Winter Street series, I suggest just reading the first 3 and like skipping this one altogether. Honestly, you're not missing a lot, and this one just made me kind of mad. Just read the first 3 if you're going to do it. The next book I'm going to talk about today is One by One by Ruth Ware. This really hit my winter aesthetic. Perfection for my winter aesthetic, okay? This is one of those times when judging the cover just paid off. So this is a dual perspective book, and it is a thriller. Basically, a group of people from this like tech company, like they made a music app, go up to a chalet. I don't think that's how you say that word, but that's how I say it when I read it. Up on a mountain, like one of the nicest ones in the area, very secluded, for like a little getaway for their company higher ups, and they're gonna have like little meetings, and there's a big issue that they're trying to like resolve, and they think like, let's take a little vacation and maybe it'll help like clear everyone's head and we can resolve this issue together. They go up there, and they all go skiing right as a storm is starting to come in, and one of the CEOs of the company goes missing. And then quickly following that, an avalanche happens on the mountainside, and it strands all of them there. So we're switching back and forth perspectives with someone who's in the tech company group and a person that is working at the establishment that this group is staying at. And shortly after the avalanche happens, like we're stuck with no communication, no power. We're up at the very top of the mountain, basically. Part of the inn is like damaged, and one of the CEOs is missing. Within 24 hours of all of that happening, another body shows up at the inn, like someone else has died. And so now it's clear cut, someone is offing people in this tech group. So then we kind of get into the thriller aspect of, people getting picked off one by one, and we have to figure out who the killer is. This was a very fun read. If you like thrillers and you have not read Ruth Ware, like, I highly encourage you to pick up a book from her. She just is so much fun to read, and this was no exception. This was really fun to read. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and the reason is because the pace at the very end of the novel did not work for me. Like, there is a time in the novel when we discover who the killer is, and then there's about 2 chapters of just what I would consider dead space in the novel. It wasn't working. Like, we all knew who the killer was, and it was like time went at a standstill, and I didn't appreciate that. Like, we had kept the pace up so well throughout the rest of the book, and then when it came down to the high point of the book, it's just like we screeched on the brakes so suddenly, and it didn't really work for me. And then after everything was kind of resolved, there was like another 2 chapters of just people wrapping up and checking in with other people in the group, or the other survivors and stuff. And that also felt like a lot of dead space for me. Like, it didn't really change my opinion of anybody in the group, and it didn't really change my opinion of the killer. So I didn't really understand what we were doing. So there was about 4 chapters at the end of the book that were just so much longer than they needed to be, and I just felt like they kind of got in the way. So that's why I didn't end up giving it the 5 stars. I still think it's a really great read, and it definitely kept me guessing. The last book I read in December was How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. This was chosen for my book club, and this book, like, super surprised me. It is a collection of fantasy sci-fi short stories, and it just blew me away. Like, this is one of those things that you need to just, like, keep on your shelf and pull out every now and then and read a couple stories. I basically got it at the beginning of the month, and I just broke it down to being like 2 or 3 stories a day until I finished it. So, like, I didn't sit down and like read it all in one go. I broke it up and read it amongst all my other books. Representation galore, and Jemisin has just this amazing writing ability. Like, you can either write good shorts or you can't. Like, I feel like there's that's it. There's no like distinguish in between. It's either good or it's not. These were really good, and they're just these beautiful little snapshots in time, and the ideas that she came up with were so out there and original and cool. I didn't feel like anything was repetitive. None of the stories were similar, and there were a lot of stories in this book. I mean, it was a thick book, and I really got a lot of enjoyment out of reading this. I did kind of look a little bit more into the stories, and one of the stories for sure, I feel like maybe some of the other stories do too, but one of the stories for sure is like an introduction to a whole other set of series that she's written. And that one story in particular, I absolutely loved. So I really want to look into more of her work, read that story in particular that she started in the short stories. But there were some short stories that were, not my favorite, but then there were some where it's like, I could read an entire novel based off this idea. So I'm really hoping some of those short stories in this book did fruition into full-fledged novels. I know for sure one of them did, but the other ones, I don't know. That's what I mean. I have to like kind of dig into Jemisin and see what I can figure out. But a lot of these stories were so very great. I had a great time reading this. I'm really happy this got chosen for my book club, because this is not something I would have picked up on my own, because I don't typically love reading short stories. Because I'm not one of those people that usually jumps in between books. I usually sit down and I read one book at a time. So this whole concept of like back burnering this book and only reading it piece by piece it was completely foreign to me, but it worked for this book because they're short stories. So like you're literally starting and finishing a story in like 10 pages. So I didn't feel like I had to keep up the plot in the back of my head. You know what I mean? I'm rambling a lot, but check this one out. This is great to just have around and dig through when you have like spare time or you want like a quick little story, because all of these were great. I ended up giving it 4 stars just because some of the stories were not my favorite. But I mean like 2 or 3 of the stories were not my favorite. But other than that, this book was great. That's all I have for you guys today. December was like a wild month for us. Like, you know, we do all the holiday stuff, and then my family and I got like extremely ill in December. Like, right before Christmas, we were all very, very sick. My husband is still recovering, even though that was like 2 weeks ago. He's still recovering. I'm okay. My kids are all okay. But, you know, it was a really weird month for us, and like I had a lot of freelancing work come in, and then the holidays, and it was just a wild time. So I'm like really happy that I ended up getting 4 books read, because I don't know how I did that. I don't know how I had time, honestly. But January is here. I have not started any books for January, which is not looking like super hopeful for me, but you know, I'll get it in gear eventually. Make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!